Coming up on today's Locked On Dodgers, the Dodgers win the series against the Braves, but lose a starter to the injured list. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about what it means for the starting rotation. We'll talk about the offense, which had another interesting day, and we'll get into the rest of the stuff from the series. That's what's on tap, so make sure to keep it Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. And remember, we're free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. To make it easy on yourself, subscribe in all those places and never miss a day because you know we're not going to. If this is your first time listening, I'm Vince Samperio of Shores Green Fiends. That's my co-host, Jeff Snider, Baseball Essential. We are lifelong Dodger fans, just like you. Although we have spent some time in the press box and the locker room covering the team, but we're not quite insiders. So we're still here to give you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. So go ahead and subscribe wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. And let's talk Dodgers. All right, Jeff. So the Dodgers won the series, the Wednesday matinee day, businessman's getaway, whatever they call it, 12-10 game. The Dodgers won behind a strong performance from Tony Gonsolin, enough on the offensive side. And all in all, they had they're going to have a day and a half now to relax before San Diego. But yeah, first, we're going to talk about Gonsolin, but also Andrew Heaney. We found out one on the injured list before the game. The Dodgers called up Zach McKinstry. We'll talk about the McKinstry part later. We'll talk about Andrew Heaney after. But let's talk about Tony Gonsolin because 6 innings, 1 hit, and looked pretty good.
Yeah, he looked outstanding. Joe and Oral made the point a couple times during the game that at least for the first few innings, he actually didn't have much fastball command, but the changeup and the slider were both really working for him. And then he got the fastball command going too, start hitting his spots with the fastball. And that, I think my voice just said fastball both times. I was saying fastball. I know what a fastball is. I'm a baseball guy. But he got the fastball working. He could have gone another inning or two, probably pitch count wise, but the Dodgers had a decent lead. And I think with Tony Gonsolin, really getting 6 innings from him was kind of what they could have dreamed of because he has been piggybacked by Tyler Anderson his first couple starts. And on the day that they realized, crap, we probably can't piggyback him with Tyler Anderson, it worked out that they didn't need a piggyback, which was great. Obviously Anderson threw a side session during the game. They weren't going to piggyback him anyway. And with the day and a half off that you mentioned, they were willing to, and having 8,000 relievers on the roster, they were willing to just, throw 5 or 6 innings of relief if they had to, but only having to use 3 innings of relief and getting 2 of those from Mitch White. It was, basically as good as the Dodgers possibly could have hoped for. I don't remember what we came down on last year when we had this conversation. The best way to win a 3-game series, if you're going to win 2 and lose 1, I assume we went 1-1-1 as the best way, right? Win the first one and the last one?
I want to say yeah, and I think the losing the first and winning the last 2 was kind of like the more fun one, like more fun, but the best way is just getting the first one out the way. Okay, the second one, come back with the third one.
Yeah, obviously they should just sweep all their series. But and you mentioned the day and a half off. I think it's kind of weird that they scheduled this game for so early because the Dodgers and the Braves both do have today off. And so they didn't need to do a day game, but it's kind of nice that they did because it does give everybody a little bit of a rest. And it did, if the Dodgers had to use their bullpen more today, it would have been a nice little break of almost 2 days. But either way, it's still a nice break, especially with Dodgers going down to San Diego. I know the players enjoy whether they stay home in LA or spend some time in San Diego, both nice places to have a day off.
Yeah, I mean, obviously LA and San Diego are great. In terms of Gonsolin, it's one of those where he continues to have effectively weird, or he's not. I wouldn't say he's effectively wild, although he did have
Sometimes he is
as many walks and strikeouts. I think this year he's just been effectively weird. Like he's has almost the same amount of strikeouts as walks throughout the year. He has a whip around, I think it was 1.7 coming into the day, probably around 1.4 or 5 now. after the game yesterday. His FIP has been much higher than his actual ERA the last few years, but he continues to get outs, continues to find ways, and he works around it. And he's now through 3 starts with a .69 ERA. I saw a stat that pitchers that have made at least 30 starts, I think, the last 3 seasons. Tony Gonsolin was behind just DeGrom and Verlander in terms of ERA. Obviously, you're moving goalposts there a little bit because only 30 starts is not that much in 3 seasons, even with a shortened season. But regardless, I mean, he's effective, continues to work out, and now, seemingly going to have at least a spot in the bullpen, at least for 2 more times through the rotation, and probably more if he continues to pitch this way. So, yeah, good to see, and hopefully he can continue it. I would like to see maybe the strikeouts take up a little bit. I think as a whole, and I didn't look this up before the show, but it feels like Dodgers pitching isn't striking out as much. I know you talked about Bueller yesterday. They're not other than Kershaw, like they're not striking out much as a whole, but they're getting a bunch of outs and not allowing runs. So that's really the name of the game.
Yeah, Kershaw and Heaney have gotten their share of strikeouts, and but yeah, Julio and Bueller and Gonsolin haven't really. And Tyler Anderson, I don't think you expect a ton of strikeouts from him with his stuff. But yeah, Gonsolin just seems to be limiting hard contact, which is a useful thing. And there are sometimes it's way too early to know if Tony Gonsolin is one of these guys, but there are some guys who just outperform their FIP. I think Hyun-Jin Ryu was always one of those guys. He didn't strike out a ton of guys, but it's really hard to hit the ball hard against him. And so he, at some point you have to look and say, okay, 5 straight years he's outperformed his FIP. He's just a guy that FIP doesn't work for. For people who don't know, FIP is fielding independent pitching. It's basically puts everything on a scale. It basically only looks at walks, strikeouts, and home runs, and says, here's how well you should be pitching based on how many guys you strike out, how many you walk, and how many home runs you allow. Gonsolin doesn't allow many home runs, but like you said, he walks as many as he strikes out. And so that's kind of the recipe for a high FIP. But really it's not like he walks a ton of guys. It's just that he doesn't strike out a ton, And so low strikeout rates are usually the main cause for a higher FIP and a guy outperforming his FIP. But if you really are inducing weak contact and getting ground balls, weak ground balls are better than weak fly balls because weak fly balls often drop in. Weak ground balls are almost always outs. Travis d'Arnaud notwithstanding, but it's a good way to pitch, and so he might be one of those guys. It's also possible he's got really good stuff, and as he gets commanding it better, we might just see that strikeout rate go up because he can throw mid-90s with a really good changeup and a solid slider, and so there's a decent chance he could start striking out more guys too.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it last year, even though he had a kind of an interesting year. I think he had his strikeout rate or was up to almost 10% last year. So he can do it, and yeah, like you said, limiting hard contact. Right now, he's in the 88th percentile for average exit velocity, 84th percentile for hard hit percentage. So he is limiting that hard contact. And like I said, if he can just find the way of limiting the walks a little bit, pounding the strike zone with fastballs, as we've seen like Kershaw and Bueller, and guys like that do in the past, then he'll definitely settle in and be a legit major league starter. And for the Dodgers, a guy that we didn't know kind of what to expect, even with, like you said, even with the strong numbers he's had in recent times, even though in small sample sizes, you still didn't know exactly what you're getting out of Gonsolin, and you don't know if that bubble, that FIP bubble was going to pop. But like I said, he might just be a guy that just outworks it at the time, and if he does figure it out, then he'll probably start evening it out and still be good anyways.
Yeah, I assume he'll meet in the middle. His FIP will get better, and his ERA will come closer to his FIP, and but I think that can still settle in as a very effective mid-rotation starter.
Yeah. All right, we're going to talk about the rest of the Dodger rotation, or at least the back end, or Andrew Heaney pitching, not like a back end, but he did go on the IL, so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Tyler Anderson and what other moves happened within it. But first, let's talk about Blue Nile, BlueNile.com, where you can go to get everyday fine jewelry. If you are, I'm not going to limit it to, but if you're a man looking for some fine jewelry for a special woman in your life, your mother or a significant other, you can go to BlueNile.com and get some. Jewelry is typically given as a gift. Guys aren't maybe so good at gifting, but with the thing with Blue Nile is if you're looking for fine jewelry but having trouble finding it, they have jewelry experts on hand 24/7 via phone or chat that helps you find a memorable gift at every budget. With Mother's Day coming up, that's a good time to get in on it. with summer coming up, maybe maybe you've been waiting on an engagement, or maybe you just want to, make your significant other happy for the summer, whatever it is. BlueNile.com can help you out. And right now, if you go to BlueNile.com and use the code locked on, you'll get $50 off of a $500 purchase. This is exclusive, only good through Mother's Day, which is May 8th for those of you that don't know. So use the code locked on. That's code locked on. And every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress free and find your forever peace. Go to BlueNile.com today. All right. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. For another listen of the day, check out the Locked On Now podcast with recaps of MLB games with analysis from our local experts. All the Locked On hosts give their takes and thoughts about all their games throughout the day. And we take fans through the season like no other network. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. All right, Jeff. So one reason Tyler Anderson wasn't piggybacking Tony Gonsolin was because Gonsolin's already been stretched out and pitched well. The other reason is because he's probably, or I think, already been named the starter for Saturday's game in San Diego, because Andrew Heaney went on the IL with left shoulder discomfort. Dave Roberts made it seem like it wasn't too big of a deal, that he might hopefully only misses one start. But, you never want to hear shoulder or elbow discomfort when it comes to a guy that's been pitching as well as Heaney has so far.
Yeah, it was kind of deflating at the moment. It's like, this is why we can't have nice things. And I had to remind myself that 2 weeks ago, we expected the Dodgers to be really good, and we expected to get zero from Andrew Heaney. And so, if for the next 10 days the Dodgers have to be really good while getting zero from Andrew Heaney, I think they'll survive. But like you said, I mean, 2 weeks ago, one of their big question marks was starting pitching. And one of the great answers the last couple of weeks has been Andrew Heaney. And so it is a bummer. Hopefully it is not a big deal. It's tough to tell from the way they described it. Said Heaney, his shoulder was hurting the day after his start, and then he played catch on Wednesday, and it didn't go great. And so they decided to put him on the IL. And so, yeah, it kind of sucks. Hopefully, if this ends up being a long stint, it'll really suck. But, I was thinking, if it's a shoulder thing, there's no reason to think that the new slider would be causing issues with his shoulder. And so it would be coincidental bad luck if it's actually a severe shoulder injury. So I really think it's probably just, the guy, his shoulder's just sore. It's early in the season. And so
Probably
the
pitched
dog,
deeper into games than he thought coming into the season, too.
yeah, that's probably true. He didn't expect to be pitching so well and so lasting so long. He was used to being out in the second inning after 35 pitches. But that's yeah. Hopefully, it's a short stint, because you'd like him to keep this momentum that he has going, to the extent that momentum matters for a starting pitcher. I don't know how much it matters, but as he's still getting the feel for this slider, obviously any time off potentially could derail that progress with that slider. But the fact that he threw it so well after just inventing it in a bullpen one time means maybe it's not that much of a field pitch anyway that he's likely to lose.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine not. And like I said, if it can be even if it's a two-start staying on the IL, it's not too bad. But hopefully nothing past that. And hopefully, like I said, if it is something different to where Trinan, where they didn't put him on the IL right away, they put him on the IL right away, which is a little bit different because they need a starter. But either way, but the good part is that Tyler Anderson's gonna take that start, and as from what we've seen from Tyler Anderson in the spring and so far this season, it's not the same in terms of striking out guys, but it is the same in terms of effectiveness. Tyler Anderson's thrown twice this season, 4 innings both times, has only allowed 2 runs, 1 in each stint, pitching pretty well. And coming off a season last year where, he was decent enough. We talked about this when they signed him and kind of looked at it. A 4.53 ERA and 31 starts. For a number 5 starter, a 4.5 ERA is, pretty decent, pretty good. That's not a bad number 5 starter. Based on what we've seen this spring, he's looked better than what that a projected 4.5 ERA. But obviously that's going to change, especially now if he's going to get more starts and where it goes there. But like you said, from something that we weren't sure about the Dodgers coming into the season starting pitching, to have Clayton Kershaw looking like a vintage Kershaw, to have Andrew Heaney looking like he did, to have Gonsolin and Tyler Anderson doing what they did. Who would have thought that at this point in the season? We're not that deep into the season, but at this point in the season, that Walker Buehler and Julio Diaz were the guys that we may be more concerned about.
Yeah, it's definitely weird, and that those are things you assume will even out over time. Yeah, Tyler Anderson, I like you said, I think he's a solid fifth starter, and that's all they really need him to be. It is kind of interesting. I guess this weekend was going to be three lefties going for the Dodgers either way. It's just Anderson instead of Heaney. The Padres are definitely better against left-handed pitching than they are against right-handed pitching. So Kershaw, Julio, and Anderson have their work cut out for them. But the kind of what we knew going into this season was that the offense is going to make up for any shortcomings we see in the starting pitching. And so Tyler Anderson going, if he can hold the Padres to 4-ish runs, I like the Dodgers' chances of winning that game, and so it's that's all they really need from Tyler Anderson, and he's been better than that so far. And so if he can go 5 or 6 innings and allow 3 or 4 runs, I think that's great.
Yeah, the one part of the Heaney going to the IL was Zach McKinstry coming up. Um, Interesting because obviously you're giving up a pitcher for a positional player, but we're not that far away from when the Dodgers are going to have to make some changes and make some cuts, quote unquote cuts to the roster, just based on the roster going down to 26 players, and also the limit on pitchers you can have on the roster. So it feels like McKinstry is just kind of the beginning of that. Uh, but unless you have a different thought, Jeff, I know Lux had missed 2 days in a row with some back issues, but Dave Roberts mentioned that he should be back in the lineup Friday. But maybe they just wanted a little bit of insurance there, or maybe, like I said, they're just getting ready because in 10 days they're going to have to, change it up.
Yeah, I think it maybe is a combination of a few things. They probably are hedging their bets a little bit with Lux and having McKinstry available, get him here with the team just in case Lux isn't available. But really, I think most of it, the four pitchers they have in the minor leagues who are on the 40-man roster are Garrett Clevenger, Michael Grove, Andre Jackson, and Darian Nunez. And none of those guys are screaming, I'm ready for the big leagues. So, Garrett Clevenger has already been in the big leagues this year. He's probably the closest, and they could have, even though they just sent him down because it's an injured list thing, they could have called him back up. But yeah, I think with nobody really forcing the issue on the minor league side, I think it did make sense, especially because the Dodgers have today and next Thursday off. And so, and then we go back to basically shortly after that, we go back to the actual limits where they can only have 13 pitchers. And so they do need to start easing into that. They're unlikely to need as many pitchers. This might mean that they are really confident that Blake Trinan is ready. They got through the Brave series without needing to use him at all. And so hopefully that means he'll be ready by Friday. I guess the alternative would be if he goes on the IL, well, then they could still call Clevenger back up at that point too. But all in all, I do think it's a combination of things, but probably mostly, we need to cut 3 pitchers in the next week and a half anyway. So let's go ahead and start doing that now.
Yeah, and with the day off tomorrow, we'll definitely get into, we're like I said, 10 days away, looking into which of those pitchers is gonna probably find his way back to the minor leagues. But no need to do that now. We're gonna talk about the offense next and just kind of the nature of the offense. We've been talking about boomer bust, but just you kind of look at the lineup and you realize that nobody's hitting out of their mind, and there's a few guys that are hitting way below what we expect. Could the offense get even better? We'll talk about that. First, talk about BetOnline. BetOnline.net. It's your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. You can check out the odds on the Dodgers every day. And like I said, if I guess the last 2 days, if you wanted to go the over, you probably would have lost. But for the most part, the Dodgers have been hitting those overs, putting up 7 runs on their own most nights. So check out BetOnline.net. They got everything you want. All the latest sports developments, league reviews, news, everything you could look for. The basketball playoffs are going on, start of MLB season. It's all covered right there at BetOnline. They're your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. So head to betonline.net today on your laptop or mobile device to learn all about the trends and all about the action going on. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Jeff. So you talked about Mookie yesterday. He hit the ball hard one time. So hopefully that's a sign of more things to come. We've talked about Cody Bellinger extensively since the spring, and he had another two extra base hit day. His OPS, I think, is up to around 850 ish, and his batting average up to 286. So, he's honestly one of the, if you look at up and down the lineup, he's one of the better performing guys, and he's still not performing anything like above out of his means. Obviously, he's a former MVP. When you look at the offense and you kind of look up and down the lineup and you look at the averages and, PSs, and you see a lot of guys that are struggling: Mookie Betts, Max Muncy, Justin Turner, Will Smith, a little bit. You see guys that are thriving: Freddie Freeman, Trey Turner, Cody Bellinger, Gavin Lux. But the Dodgers offense has been really good. They put up, 7 runs. They've had multiple innings with 4 more runs, more than any other team in baseball. And it's one of those where, you remember, Mookie and Smith and Turner and Muncy part of some of those rallies. But maybe it's their one hit of the day, one hit of the game, one hit of the series, whatever it is. So everyone's kind of contributing, but it doesn't feel like they've hit, any kind of stride yet, which is a good thing.
Yeah, and there's definitely pros and cons to it. One of the downsides we've seen is when you only have 3 guys who are really hitting well. If the 3 of them have an off night on the same night, then you get what we got against Max Fried the other night, and a bad game. But uh, the fact is that everybody on this team is so talented that even the guys who are struggling have potential to do it. It's not like they're worthless up there at the plate. And so even though their overall numbers aren't good, they can still bust out a nice inning or a nice hit or whatever. Justin Turner, I think back-to-back games had those 2-run singles to right field. And that's, even though Turner has no year so far, he can still poke a single to right field when you need him sometimes. And things like that, and you mentioned Bellinger, his OPS is at 89 right now, which is, I think, even lower than the second half of 2019 that everybody thinks was really bad, when really it was only bad compared to his first half of 2019. So Cody, even with him, there's still room for growth and improvement there. And so it's not like you said, he's not playing out of his mind. It's not like we should expect Cody Bellinger to be coming back to earth. If anything, we should expect him to be getting more consistent as he gets more confident, and watch those numbers maybe even go up a little bit. And that's great. And we know Mookie can hit. And so he's going to break out. I'm less confident in a Justin Turner breakout, just because it's hard to tell at this point. You never know until hindsight, looking back, to, oh, that was when he got old. And so Justin Turner might have gotten old and we just don't know it yet. Maybe the power isn't coming back, but April has always been, other than last year, April has always been a month that he doesn't have any power. And so he might be just fine. But Max Muncy is definitely going to be fine. He's coming off that elbow injury. He's going to be fine. Will Smith, way too talented and too young to not break through. And so all these guys who aren't doing as well as we expect them to, for the most part, there's a reason we expect them to, and they're going to do that. And so that really does bode well, because the Dodgers right now are, what are they, 9-3? And 9-3, which puts them on pace for, that's a 750 winning percentage. So about 120 wins. And that's without their offense clicking and with question marks on the starting pitching. So I think they're going to be okay.
Yeah, I think it's fine. And Smith, the peripherals are just, not quite there in terms of what we was expected. But, you look at his baseball savant page and there's a lot of red there. He's still the guy, maybe a little bit bad luck. And maybe if he's had a few of that, maybe dead baseball contributed to him having a couple less home runs on the board. So, yeah, Smith, I'm not worried about. Justin Turner's the one slightly worried about as time goes on, just because, like you said, we don't know. At some point he's going to get too old. And we know last year, if he was starting to not be able to hit fastballs that were above 95, he seemingly rectified that a little bit in the last year and a half or so. But still, it's very possible that he goes right back to that. But like you said, he's not the number 3-4 hitter anymore. He's number 5. Can easily go down to number 6. Realistically, if Freddie Freeman and Trey Turner continue what they're doing, the Dodgers offense is going to continue to roll, putting up 4 or 5 runs a night, just based on those guys being on base. And you're going to get a base hit here and there from whoever contributes, basically like we've been seeing. there's a reason Freddie Freeman took a while to get his first RBI because he usually was coming up when and Mookie wasn't getting on base. There's a reason that Trey Turner is racking up RBIs because he's not getting Freddie Freeman some of those times because Freeman was hitting a lot of singles and doubles. So his offense is still going to work. And like I said, Trey Turner, he's not hitting. He's not batting 500. He's batting where he normally hit. He's hitting what he usually does. Freddie Freeman, same thing. He's hitting what he normally does. So Mookie Betts, Max Muncy, Justin Turner can just, even if they get to low balling at 80% of what we're expecting of them or what they've done in the past, that's good. Even if Will Smith, those luck starts shifting a little bit, you're good there. And yeah, I mean, it's exciting to think about that the offense is doing this with guys maybe getting one hit a night. And if that starts bumping up to 1 or 2 hits or, 2 to 3 hits a night and a little bit more consistently, then, watch out.
Yeah. And the other thing is the Dodgers only have 10 home runs so far this year. And that's going to change, whether it's, the ball waking up at some point, weather getting warmer. The Dodgers have had between Gavin Lux and Will Smith and, even Justin Turner hit one off the wall the other day. There have been plenty of balls the Dodgers have hit that seem like they would have been home runs at other times. And some of those are going to start going over the wall. And you get runs every time you hit a home run. You get at least one run. And, with it's the Braves, if it's the Braves, you only get one run apparently. But other teams sometimes get multi-run home runs. And so all of this between the players we know are good picking it up and some of these balls starting to fly over the wall, as good as the Dodgers offense has been overall so far this year, I think we're going to see more consistency and better overall numbers as the season goes on.
Yeah. So, and 2 of those home runs came on Wednesday's game, which was a day game, a little bit different air at Dodger Stadium. So, like I said, once it starts heating up, Dodger Stadium has become a place for home runs in the past. So
That's right. So they have 11, not 10. Sorry. They had 9 going into the game. I remembered Freeman's. I forgot Rios's for a second. I don't know how, because that was a pretty thing. With
that
Rios,
was so loud.
Was it?
It was so loud.
One of the great things about Rios is when you're watching on TV, the way he got a hold of it is if you can't see the ball leave the bat, because his bat angle is so perfect for a home run that if the ball is just right on the same angle as the bat, oh, he got a hold of that thing. And that was it. As soon as he swung, I didn't see the ball. So I'm like, oh, that's gone. And then it was halfway up the pavilion in right field.
Yeah.
It was pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So another series win. The Dodgers go to San Diego this weekend. No game tomorrow. We'll probably have room for a mailbag episode. But Jeff, anything else from this series or in general that you want to bring
up? Did you stalk Kendrick Lamar the other night?
I did not. I was going to go out there, but I was going to go out there because they only showed him on the broadcast, which means that would have meant people would have to text people at the game. But then when they showed him on the big screen,
it got crazy.
But it looked like it. So he has an album dropping in May. So this looked like a predetermined public appearance because I saw Sujo, the Dodger social media extraordinaire. She was out there pre-game. She posted on her Instagram that she was out there pre-game trying to find the spot of how they were going to take the picture. So they knew he was going to be there already.
Oh, and Joe Davis on the broadcast knew the name of the album that's dropping. And Oral actually asked him, was that off the top of your head? And Joe said, no, it was not. So it seemed like it was all coordinated. But yeah, well, that was exciting for you and people who know who Kendrick Lamar is, which I am not quite that demographic, I guess. Like I said, if Doug Supernaw shows up at Dodger Stadium, I'll tell you all about his song, I'm Seeing My Father in Me, Yeah. Love that song from the 90s.
Yeah. I guess the one thing I want to bring up is the situation in Oakland, not looking great. I mean, A's, we've already known that they don't get the most fans there, but they're starting. Last night, they were out more fans at the AAA game for the A's affiliate in Vegas, which is funny because that's where a lot of people think they're going to end up. Then we're at the actual A's game in Oakland. Obviously, it's not really a matter of the fans. We know that they have somewhat, we know that they have passionate fans, maybe not as many fans. But yeah, that team has just been gutted, and their guys are all over the league and not on the A's anymore. And Christian Pache is doing his best to make it fun over there and be a good guy on social media. But yeah, I don't know. Oakland's had trouble keeping teams. They don't have the Warriors in Oakland anymore. They don't have the Raiders in the state of California anymore. The A's could be next.
Yeah, there are 9 minor league teams in California, which means it's reasonable that the A's might have had the 14th best baseball attendance in California these last couple days, which is yeah, it sucks. And that stadium, obviously you have a soft spot for that stadium as a Raiders fan. It's the worst stadium in baseball for sure. It's still a baseball stadium, so it's still great. But yeah, it's a rough situation, and makes makes you glad again to be a Dodger fan with owners, and to have lived through the McCourt era and the Fox era before that, the Rupert Murdoch era, and all of that. Because yeah, owners who like their fans, or at least are willing to pretend they like their fans by spending money and stuff and making the stadium nice, it's a nice thing to have.
Yeah, speaking of interesting owners and ownership, also the Reds came to California, got 4 games swept by the Dodgers, 3 games swept by the Padres. I think have lost 9 or 10 in a row now in total. They haven't had a lead in any of those games. That's coming off the remarks from their team president or whoever it was,
The
basically
owner's
saying,
son,
yeah,
yeah.
basically saying, what are you gonna do about it? You said you're not gonna show up, you're not gonna support the Reds. So yeah.
Yeah, it's ugly. Tommy Pham is challenging people to fights, which is a weird thing for a dude who got stabbed in a bar fight to be doing. But to each his own. I
He
guess if
said it
you,
was. He said one on one, he's fine. That one was a multiple persons.
all
That's
right,
what he said
yeah,
on Twitter.
yeah, I wouldn't want to fight Tommy Pham, to be
Yeah,
fair, but you know, I don't know, whatever, Tommy Pham,
yeah.
go win
But
a
if it
baseball
wasn't
game or
Tommy Pham,
something.
Luke Voigt. I mean, if Tommy Pham was big, Luke Voigt makes him look small.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but yeah, that's what's going on around the league. But we'll be back tomorrow to talk about, like I said, probably a episode where we ask questions or we take questions from you guys. So if you have any questions, make sure to submit them. We might do a little Trevor Bauer talk. His administrative leave is supposed to end April 22nd, and by this point of every other time it's been this close to the end of his administrative leave, we had already heard that it was going to be extended. So there could be something coming there. But we'll be here back tomorrow to talk all about it. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day every day. Check out Locked On MLB for another listen in your day with Paul Francis Sullivan, aka Sully. It's free available wherever you get podcasts. If you want to find us, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vince Samperio. One note: I've already been approached twice at Dodger Stadium this year, so by loyal listeners that listen on their way to work in the morning. So
It's my favorite thing when people
yeah,
at Dodger Stadium come up and say hi, especially when my kids were with me. Like it's the only thing that my kids think is cool about me these days. So
yeah,
keep doing that, guys.
yeah, keep doing that. So I think the YouTube is also going to help with that because people can actually see us rather than just our Twitter avi. So yeah,
Except my
uh,
wife is going to make me shave soon, and so then people won't recognize me with my fat baby face anymore.
well, by the time you're back in LA, maybe not.
Maybe not.
Yeah, but yeah, we are there. You can get a hold of us via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com. You can get a hold of us via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. Send us any questions if you have them for tomorrow's episode. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be with us when you get in your car. If you're at home, text my device, play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree, you just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.